Well, howdy. Welcome to Juneteenth at First Unitarian Church of Pittsburgh, and happy Father's Day to all you dads out there. I'm Ward Kelsey, a member of the worship team at the church, and it's June 19th, 2022. Our minister, Reverend Kate Walker, is en route today to Portland, Oregon, for the Unitarian Universalist Association's annual General Assembly. With me today is Ellen Goshen, our Director of Instrumental Music, Erica Shadowsong, our Director of Lifetime Religious Education, and DavidHereth, a longtime member of this congregation, leader at various times in our religious education program, and our guest speaker for this morning. We're so glad that you've chosen to be with us this morning. We are one people of many beliefs, many origins, sexualities, and genders. We are all growing and learning, all loved. Just as you are welcome. We are working for justice wherever the heavy weight of oppression has dug into the fabric of life. I'm live in our sanctuary with some in person, and those on YouTube. I have with me today, in addition to these staff members and volunteers, a number of other helpers who are working very hard to keep us running smoothly, both online and in person. And on behalf of them, I want to thank you as well. If this is your first time with us, we want to be in touch with you. If you have not already done so, please go to our welcome desk in the garden lobby, or if you're on YouTube, visit our website. Just Google First Unitarian Pittsburgh. Don't gargle it, Google it. And sign up for our weekly newsletter, and you'll find the space to do that at the bottom of the page. You are also invited to join us for social time on Zoom following this live worship. To get a Zoom link, please send an email to, and this is all spelled out, firstunitarianpittsburgh@gmail.com, and a link will automatically be sent to you. Now, I invite you to take a deep breath, arrive in body and spirit, and picture yourself connected to all others who are watching today and in the future.
This is called Daybreak by Robin Gray. Day breaks on our gratitude for family and friends, for the freedom to find our own truth, for the company of those who gather here, and the promises we offer one another. Let the light of the day bring the grace of faith into our lives. And now, rise as you are able to sing our opening hymn, number 1008 from the Blue Book, When Our Heart is in a Holy Place.
See our faces in each other's eyes. voices in each other's words. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when we share the silence of sacred space, and the God of our hearts stirs within, and we feel the power of each other's faith, then our heart is in a holy place. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place.
Some of you may have grown up with this book on your shelves or heard it in libraries or schools. The People Could Fly. It's a collection of African American folk tales by Virginia Hamilton. And I am going to read the story, The People Could Fly. They say the people could fly. Say that long ago in Africa, some of the people knew magic, and they would walk up in the air like climbing up on a gate. And they flew like blackbirds over the fields, black shiny wings flapping against the blue up there. Then many of the people were captured for slavery. The ones that could fly shed their wings. They couldn't take their wings across the water on the slave ships, too crowded. The folks were full of misery then, got sick with the up and down of the sea, so they forgot about flying when they could no longer breathe the sweet scent of Africa. Say the people who could fly kept their power, although they shed their wings. They kept their secret magic in the land of slavery. They looked the same as the other people from Africa who had been coming over, who had dark skin. Say you couldn't tell anyone who could fly from one who couldn't. One such who could was an old man, call him Toby, and standing tall yet afraid was a young woman who once had wings. Call her Sarah. Now Sarah carried a babe tied to her back. She trembled to be so hard worked and scorned. The slaves labored in the fields from sunup to sundown. The owner of the slaves, calling himself their master, say he was a hard lump of clay, a hard glinty coal, a hard rock pile, wouldn't be moved. His overseer on horseback pointed out the slaves who were slowing down. So the one called driver cracked his whip over the slow ones to make them move faster. That whip was a slice open cut of pain, so they did move faster, had to. Sarah hoed and chopped the row as the babe on her back slept. Say the child grew hungry. That babe started bawling up too loud. Sarah couldn't stop to feed it, couldn't stop to soothe and quiet it down, so she let it cry. She didn't want to. She had no heart to croon to it. Keep that thing quiet, called the overseer. He pointed his finger at the babe. The woman scrunched low. The driver cracked his whip across the babe anyhow. The babe hollered like any hurt child, and the woman fell down to the earth. The old man that was there, Toby, came and helped her to her feet. I must go soon, she told him. Soon, he said. Sarah couldn't stand up straight any longer. She was too weak. The sun burned her face. The babe cried and cried, "Pity me, oh, pity me," say it sounded like. Sarah was so sad and starving she sat down in the row. "Get up, you black cow," called the overseer. He pointed his hand, and the driver's whip snarled around Sarah's legs. Her sack dress tore into rags. Her legs bled onto the earth. She couldn't get up. Toby was there when there was no one to help her and the babe. "Now, before it's too late," panted Sarah. "Now, Father." "Yes, daughter, the time has come," Toby answered. "Go, as you know how to go." He raised his arms, holding them out to her. "Come, Yali, come, Baba Tambe." And more magic words, said so quickly they sounded like whispers and sighs. The young woman lifted one foot in the air, then the other. She flew clumsily at first, with the child now held tightly in her arms. Then she felt the magic, the African mystery. Say she rose just as free as a bird, as light as a feather. The overseer rode after her, hollering. Sarah flew over the fences. She flew over the woods. Tall trees could not snag her, nor could the overseer. She flew like an eagle now until she was gone from sight. No one dared speak about it, couldn't believe it. But it was, because they that was there saw that it was. Say the next day was dead hot in the fields. A young man-slave fell from the heat. Driver come and whipped him. Toby come over and spoke words to the fallen one. The words of ancient Africa once heard are never remembered completely. The young man forgot them as soon as he heard them. They went way, way inside him. He got up and he rolled over on the air. He rode it a while and he flew away. Another and another fell from the heat. Toby was there. He cried out to the fallen and reached his arms out to them. Come, kunkayali, kum, tambe. Whispers and sighs. And they too rose on the air. They rode like hot breezes. The ones flying were black and shining sticks wheeling above the head of the overseer. They crossed the rows, the fields, the fences, the streams, and were away. Seize the old man, cried the overseer. I heard him say the magic words. Seize him. The one calling himself master come running. The driver got his whip ready to curl around old Toby and tie him up. The slave owner took his hip gun from its place. He meant to kill old black Toby, but Toby just laughed. Say he threw back his head and say, don't you know who I am? Don't you know some of us in this field? He said it to their faces. We are ones who can fly. And he sighed the ancient words that were a dark promise. He said them all around to the others in the field under the whip. Baba Yali, Baba Tambe. There was a great outcrying. The bent backs straightened up. Old and young who were called slaves and could fly joined hands. Say like they would ring sing, but they didn't shuffle in a circle. They didn't sing. They rose on the air. They flew in a flock that was black against the heavenly blue. Black crows or black shadows, it didn't matter. They went so high, way above the plantation, way over the slavery land. Say they flew away to freedom. And the old man, old Toby, flew behind them, taking care of them. He wasn't crying. He wasn't laughing. He was the seer. His gaze fell on the plantation where the slaves who could not fly waited. Take us with you, their looks spoke, but they were afraid to shout it. Toby couldn't take them with him, hadn't the time to teach them to fly. They must wait for a chance to run. Goodbye, the old man called Toby, spoke to them, poor souls, and he was flying gone. So they say, the overseer told it. The one called master said it was a lie, a trick of the light. The driver kept his mouth shut. The slaves who could not fly told about the people who could fly to their children when they were free. When they sat close before the fire in the free land, they told it. They did so love the firelight and freedom and telling. They say that the children of the ones who could not fly told their children, and now me, I have told it to you. I invite you to rise in spirit or in body to sing number 1010. And any children with us, we're going to head out and go to another room.
Oh, we give thanks for this precious day, for all gathered near and thus far away, for this time we share with love and care. Oh, we give thanks for this precious day. Oh, we give thanks for this precious day, for all gathered here and thus far away, for this time we share with love and care. Oh, we give thanks for this precious day.
So now it's time to take the morning offering. Donations by check may be mailed to the church office or placed in the plate today. Electronic donations can be made online through the church website or by texting GIVE to 412-435-1050 and following the instructions. We hold each other in our hearts and minds with all our joys and all our sorrows. As some of us already know, Mary Alice Josbowski's sister-in-law, Martha, was in a serious car accident, and she's still in serious condition, recently in the ICU in Presbyterian Hospital. Her husband, Bob, is very sad and distressed. Please keep Martha, Bob, Mary Alice, and their family in your prayers. We remember those who are experiencing losses of various kinds and those facing health challenges. We are aware that many are faced with heightened difficulties presented by these times that continue to challenge us all. May we find joy in our connections with each other and in the pleasures that life holds. Let us continue to care for one another and for ourselves in all the ways we can. We hold each other in our hearts and minds with all our joys and all our sorrows, whether spoken or unspoken. Now let's take a moment to just be quiet together. Let us listen deeply to what is in our hearts. Let us listen to what our fears are. Let us listen to the young children. Let us listen to the teens. Let us listen to the elders. Let us listen when the world is sick. Let us listen. Number 1002, here in your, what we used to call the blue, green, teal hymnal. And we're going to sing verse 1, verse 2, and then repeat verse 1. So this reading, entitled Wounds from Our Fathers, by UU Minister Mike Johnson, it takes a, shall we say, a more rounded view of Father's Day, but I really liked it when I read it, and I want to share it with you on this special day. Each of us has gifts and wounds from those who followed us. This is inevitable. Even the best fathers in the world disappoint their children sometimes. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to grow up. But I know that some wounds are deeper than others. Some people's hearts have been broken by their father's neglect or abuse, or by the absence of good fathering in their lives. When Father's Day comes along, while it may be a joyful day for some, it can bring up the pain others carry from painful relationships with their fathers. It can also trigger grief and sadness for those who have lost their fathers or whose fathers' lives have been diminished from illness or old age. Let this be a day when we can honor our fathers and also honor our fathering wounds. All of us as adults can learn to parent ourselves and each other, to share the gifts we receive from our fathers, and to heal the wounds of our childhoods. We can adopt father figures to help us learn what we didn't learn from our own parents. Father figures are those who believe in us, who treat us like we're special. It might be as simple as a neighbor who teaches us how to wash and wax the car. It might be a teacher, an art teacher, who encourages us to draw or paint, or a friend who listens to our struggles and confusion. Part of growing up is realizing that our fathers are human beings with gifts and failings. Part of growing up is letting go of needing our fathers to be better than they were. This is easier to do if we realize that we can offer and receive fathering from others. When we can do this, we are also better able to honor the gifts and forgive the wounds we have received from our own fathers.
I want to thank the Sunday Celebration Committee for inviting me to speak here today. You know, I'm thinking it's been almost 3 years since I was in this pulpit. And I'm very, very happy to be back. Today is Father's Day, and I'm going to ask your indulgence as I say hello to my 3 daughters who are watching this from 3 different cities, Milwaukee, Chicago, and Mérida, Yucatan, Mexico. So hi, girls. And today is June 19th. It's Juneteenth, or Black Independence Day. And that's what I want to talk about this morning. What is Juneteenth and why is it important? As I'm sure you know, that last year, President Biden signed legislation to make this day, the 19th of June, a new national holiday. He said at the time, "A great nation does not ignore its most painful moments. In remembering, we begin to heal and to grow stronger." That was 1 year ago. today is the second year that we're celebrating National Juneteenth Day. But for some Americans, they have been celebrating on this day since June 19th, 1866. That day was an anniversary of 1 year since the Union General Gordon Granger had marched into Galveston, Texas, and read his military order number 3, which said partly, "The people of Texas are informed that in accordance with a proclamation from the Executive of the United States, all slaves are free." Slavery was over. But the road to freedom stretched on ahead. History professor Henry Louis Gates, Jr. wrote that the ex-Confederate mayor of Galveston openly disregarded Granger's orders and forced people back to work. On the plantations, it was essentially up to the enslavers to decide when and where to announce the news to enslaved men and women. And many enslavers waited until the harvesting process was complete. Another history professor, Noah Feldman, wrote that many, probably most, white Southerners resisted Reconstruction from the start. And that resistance was sometimes violent. Southern whites eventually found ways to keep newly freed black people disempowered. Economically, through sharecropping, socially, through segregation, and politically, through blocking or reversing enfranchisement. Together, the Compromise of 1877 that ended Reconstruction and the Supreme Court decisions upholding systemic segregation and disenfranchisement relegated African Americans to a status that was, in many places, little better than slavery. And yet, every year on the 19th of June, people gathered to remember and to celebrate. They gathered in churches, and when they were refused public facilities, the use of public facilities, they would pool their money together to purchase a piece of land where the Juneteenth commemorations could go on. Professor Gates describes Juneteenth as a pivotal moment in Black history. He says, in one of the most inspiring grassroots movements of the post-Civil War period, Black Americans transformed June 19th from a day of unheeded military orders into their own annual rite. Juneteenth has been described as nothing less than an annual celebration of hope and resistance. History can be both disturbing and inspiring. It could be dangerous to celebrate Juneteenth in the Jim Crow South. Clint Smith, in his book, How the Word is Passed, wrote, "In many ways, the public spectacle of Juneteenth came to serve as an open rebuke to the emerging lost cause narrative of the 1800s. How could anyone suggest the war was not about slavery when Black people across the state and across the country were providing annual public reminders of the war's inextricable link to emancipation? As the lost cause mythology continued into the 20th century, Juneteenth was not only a celebration, but also a seizing of public memory. When Opal Lee was 12 years old, living with her family in Fort Worth, Texas, a mob of white rioters burned and destroyed her home. The date was June 19th, 1939. She grew up to be a teacher and an activist, campaigning for decades to make Juneteenth a national holiday. And last year, at 94 years old, she was in the room at the White House when the president signed the Juneteenth National Independence Day Act. There is still much work to do. All over the country, there are new laws seemingly designed to counter Black turnout at the polls. There are groups trying to deny the legacy of white supremacy and trying to keep students from learning about racial injustice. And last month, my hometown of Buffalo, New York, joined a list of cities like Tulsa, Charleston, South Carolina, Wilmington, North Carolina, where racist massacres have taken place. In 1979, Al Edwards, as a newly elected Texas state legislator, introduced a bill to make Juneteenth a Texas state holiday. He was successful, and in 1980, Texas became the first state to make Juneteenth an official state holiday. He had participated in the civil rights movement. marching along with Martin Luther King and Jesse Jackson. He considered Juneteenth as an extension of the civil rights movement. So I'd like to finish my remarks today with a few words from Martin Luther King. And then we're going to sing that great American hymn, "Lift Every Voice and Sing." The words are by the poet and educator James Weldon Johnson, and the music by his brother, the composer J. Rosamond Johnson. So these are the words of Dr. King. If you lose hope, somehow you lose the vitality that keeps moving. You lose the courage to be. That quality that helps you go on in spite of it all.
Every voice and sing, till earth and heaven ring, ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise, high as the listening skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling sea. Sing a song
The words for extinguishing the chalice are, as I am told, repeated frequently in UU congregations around the country. Those of you who have an order of service, I ask you to join me in reading these words. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. And now we send you on your way. May you know the love of family, friends, and this community. May you know the joy of creation and the power of justice. Go in peace, return with love.